I'm Mabel Akoto-Kujo, CEO of Okata Farms and Food Processing, based in the OT region of Ghana. I started using OFA in the year 2019. I was introduced by Peter Teno on the benefits of using OFA, and I've been farming for 15 years. I don't use any chemical on my farm. I do mulching when I'm plowing my field. And where I see that the soil is struggling, then we add nitrogen by planting cowpea. Then I was introduced to OFA. And that year we had this fall armyworm. That is 2019. We had fall armyworm destroying a lot of farms. But when I started using OFA, I realized that I wasn't having any problem at all. And the yield, I always take the maize and the rice yields, because previously I was having 3 tons per hectare, that is 2.5 acres. But after applying OFA, I had 4.5 tons for that same hectare. I took it to the maize farm, and I realized that even the maize, we used to have 8 bags per acre, 8 maxi bags. But after applying OFA, we are now having 15 maxi bags. I recommend OFA organic 8. It's not even a fertilizer, an 8, because it's helping in pesticides and it's helping in insects. All farmers, both large and small. And you always come to thank me for sending you to use OFA.
Know about OFA, I was invited by a colleague over here. So when I came after the training, then I saw the importance of me introducing OFA to my farmers. So I told them about them, then we had a training. Some got interested and they bought. You know, farmers and they are doubting Thomas. So some of them were doubting. So others bought. So we're using their farms as a try and food. And one farmer is normally into vegetables and cabbage. So he called me that we should come and check his farm. He is a very practical man. So he did one with OFA, the others with no OFA. And he told me normally with the other even fertilizers and chemicals, or you will see this dark spot on the cabbages. But when he used OFA this time around, maybe like 3 months ago, the farmers came around harvesting with no spot on the cabbage. And he had good yield. So he has also started telling other farmers about it. And the most important part that made me call OFA people to come to my district was because of the 3 purposes that it serves. Not just increasing the yield, but also serving as pesticide for farmers.
Mr. David just introduced OFA to me when I use it. It is just within a year. I used it during the rainy season. I saw the yields. It was so marvelous. At the same time, during the rainy season, disease was there. Some of my colleagues' farms, they were all infected, but mine, no.
My name is Abdullah Mohammed, coming from Northern Region, Tolan District. So David came and gave it to me. Now we were having farming group, so we went and showed it to them. And then when I sent it to my farm, I'm a vegetable farmer. Actually, when I spray it this year, actually I get better yield. Even all the customers that I have in Tamale, they were rushing for my vegetables, simply because it was very neat. And then people were coming to buy. There was not any effect of insects. So because of that, I even studied some part of it, using different chemicals and then spreading my body. This year, I was very safe because when I using it without this overalls, I was afraid because of the effect of the chemical. But this one day, even if I spray it today, we can even harvest the vegetables and take. And then because of that, all the customers were interested in my vegetables. So I was encouraging all the farmers to come back to offer so that they will get a better yield. They offer Mr. Davis Sana, and Zanle Tumtumasham and Pune. The Novian Yang Pamtama. I was all check at Dabima, Kapkana, into Borum Bumbrama, the Bruminia Kabich Quara, Kakwar Mana, Quarnaz, who I didn't Zaha. So we cannot in yellow, the Chervam Yaksum. So the Mishi Chandane, Tanirbo Pambalame, can concert for Parvazaha, Yavu Pambama, Belabna, Ndi offer, car sunset to Pupalam Pune, Cabarnacula to Intite, Tenang Benapune, the Bakonko, the sunset to me, Zanchang, Tishama, and Tapana at the Butikachere.
The Frame Haruna Fusini, you don't have Frame, my, if you go east, Tichimai, na adruwe offer ya drobia se manhia na nka menko amede nka mawu frise sukamre me do aburo no bi na aburo a me do e no me to fertilizer ankasa fertilizer me to e no ani amwa me but edru pebre we see me hia aye offer mpanimfo ma bedi hu adanse pa kire me me di ampa me kwa afum ho e de ko kire mo bi to e na me yusu ye no minya ntwa aburo no sesei na so metime ayi mu phone so akere se e ya dupa minya ntwa aburo no kura na e papa na ade amasin adi hu adanse ba kura na se me yonko ba akokɔ bo spray e wo na aburo so ma aburo no ye start se e hye me di hu adanse de kire se onkoto aduro we bi ampa okoto aduro no e boa no ama aburo no sesei hye hye ni nyina ajai enti di adanse se offer e ya dupa ka me nkwa me friends se manhia no bisen ka manhia no dia na nka meti ate enye no so nko a me wo kashu wo me de kopompi kashu no so this time me am kodu kashu mu a na me pese me ko fie bio me wo anka kakra so wo ho me de bi kopompi anka no so ma hu se ne anka no so asiaye nti offer no de eya dupa me sire mpanifo se omontonko so no omonye na yenso ye beboa ama yenso ye ka ye de no ana ye kobo no fertilizer ho no ebeba fam frise pebre sukamre no de meto no sese no man to sa akra mangu pet bia ka offer ho esumafo no aye kama mam
Okay. Ofa, we go fi bi akeba. Mo mi ha wole. E jino ko mi e na mo wa ni. We get ahuno ni amenta ni ni bi e afi o ta ne. Sani amena ofa ni ajo ni bi e. Ba na ke ami bi e ba ye bi ba na se.
And so, thank you very much, Stefano. Really, our aim in this day is to communicate. I think at times we're also busy with our individual tasks that we don't share enough to get the most out of what can happen when we learn from each other. And we're a company that really does believe in sharing and learning. And this forum day is part of that. We want to share what we've learned already about our product and what it can do. And we also want to learn from you guys who represent a community of interest, who one way or another have some interest and commitment to agriculture in Ghana and in Africa as a whole. It's a very interesting product. I mean, of course, I would say that because it's my product, but actually it's an exceptionally broad spectrum of things it can do to help the farmer. So there's a lot of interesting research to be done. And not just interesting research, but research, at least from our point of view, that feeds directly into helping farmers get more out of the product and know how to make the best use of it. So we're very keen on practical applied research, and we're grateful again to our research community who are working with us on this. We've learned a lot from you, and we look forward to a continuing research program. Although we're quite a small company, we invest quite heavily in R&D because I really believe it's critical to making the most of the product and making sure that we have a really sound base of information that we're providing to people. You know, we're not making stuff up. It's been verified. It's been checked. People with years of experience have looked at it and helped us to work out, you know, what's the best application for the farmer. Just maybe just in summary in the program, Gilbert Said here will be giving us an overview of the product from a scientific point of view. He's a practical guy who looks after our demonstration field, so he's not just talking theory, he's talking practical application. And then we'll have two other researchers, Dr. Nata here and Dr. Ophelia from SARI presenting, and then we'll have opportunity to go down to the field and have a look at a small slight diversion, you might say, is that we have a commissioned sculpture from Nana Anoff. Some of you may have heard of Nana Anoff, who's one of Ghana's leading artists. So we have a small sculpture relevant to farmers and OFA, which will be.
If you get OFA, just a little piece of land that is produced from exposing biomass to high temperatures in the absence of oxygen. So without doing much into the science behind it, basically you are burning biomass in the absence of oxygen. So the remaining liquid is what we have entrapped and accumulated and placed in the bottom that we have seen around. OFA is safe for human beings, for animals, for plants, and environment. Why is OFA safe? It's safe because it is produced organically. As against the synthetic fertilizers that we have on the market that are produced organically. The active agents in OFA are several. What makes OFA unique is that these active ingredients don't work individually. They work in smooth, that is, they come together to work, to produce better results on the field. There are many uses of OFA. And currently, our focus is on agriculture and organic farming. In terms of agriculture, there have been instances whereby OFA has been linked with poultry food as well as pig food for consumption. And also, OFA is a major stakeholder in organic farming in Ghana, as per the Malone will testify. And it's an excellent pesticide to match the emphasis on fungicides. We all know that fungicides are brought about by a lot of factors. But the most common factor is the availability of soil moisture. We know that in Ghana, most of our culture has been fed. That is, we don't produce the amount of water we put on the floor. Therefore, application of OFA will be a sure bet to use, if not prevent, to use the incidence of what the fungal disease will be caused by the availability of excess moisture. Those of us who are sometimes realize that when there is excess moisture, realize that there's a disease called damping of the energy. That's a lot of excess water that is being applied. Presenting on the benefits of OFA. As we all know, because of the farmers, when these farmers are working, we see introduction, methodology, how they do it. That's very important to them. Yes, it's not the output, the yield. Then the problem of OFA is that increases crop yield, as well as improving versatility and quality of crops. Now, the quality of crops can happen in both ways. That is, in terms of nutrition, OFA helps in the nutrient content of crops, as well as the preserved quality of crops. Now, this can be achieved through these 5 main activities. First of all, OFA serves as biostimulant. Now, the difference is that OFA doesn't replace the soil nutrients in the soil. What is that? That it aids the plant in absorbing soil nutrients in the soil. It serves as what? A biostimulant, as well as serving as a conditioner acid area. It also helps in the control of fall and worm disease. Research was done by the University of Ghana and realized that OFA was able to successfully control fall worm. Then we also realized that the development of stronger roots for the plant. We all know that once we plant, the roots serve as source. Basically, source means it is the roots that delves into the soil to get water and nutrients for the plant to grow before the leaves are formed for photosynthesis to occur, before the flowers and the fruits occur. And the last one is that it also helps in germination of germination as well as the seedling proof. Those who came in here realized we were showing some pictures over here and realized the ones without OFA, the growth was tainted as compared to the one with OFA that was having high yields. Dr. Nate will talk about seedling, especially with his research in rubber, how OFA works. Now, with respect to the rooting of the crops, what OFA does is that once you apply OFA to the soil, it improves the availability of soil microbes. That is the earthworms and other soil microbes living in the soil. Now, when these activities of these soil microbes are enhanced, it improves soil aeration as well as soil structure. When these two factors come together, it helps the growth of wheat. As I said earlier, the importance of wheat to plant. As the root grows or matures steadily, it has a resultant effect on the overall growth of the plant. Also, it changes the microbial population due to OFA application. Now, OFA is highly acidic. So once we apply the OFA onto the plant, what it does is that it disturbs the breeding grounds of the disease-causing organisms. So the presence of this acidity slows down or reduces the ability of these pests or disease-causing organisms to produce. Now, this also talks about how OFA contribute to plant resistance against diseases. Normally, there are various enzymes in plants that ensures the growth and the health of plants. However, these two are responsible for control of diseases. Now, research has shown that OFA stimulates the production of these two amino acids in the plant, which helps to contribute to the plant's resistance against diseases. Also, OFA stimulates high levels of chlorophyll in the leaves. We realize that when you apply OFA, the plant exhibits greener color as compared to plants that do not have OFA. As a result of the production of this chemical called ester, it's a hormone in the plant. This ester is responsible for the sweet taste in plants. You realize that, for example, for carrots or for tomato, those who have used OFA, when you taste them, the sugar, the sweetness in it is high as compared to the product that was associated with OFA application. One key thing that is important now in our farming is tolerance to drought stress. We know with the impact of climate change, rainfall is erratic and it is unreliable. You can realize that of late, the amount of rainfall I having particular this year, if you are comparing to last year by this time, you're not having such amount of rainfall, which means the pattern of rainfall has changed. So as a farmer, if you are planning your farming activities, you know that at this particular point of the year, there's supposed to be rainfall. But due to climate change, maybe the rainfall delay or the quantum of rainfall we're expecting was not up what we're expecting. Now, in plants, there's a hormone called acetic acid. It is responsible for aiding plants for them to be tolerant to what? To drought stress. Research has shown that the application of OFA boosts the production of this acetic acid, which means in the presence of OFA, and even with little rainfall or little amount of water applied, you're able to get your area. For example, if you're talking about water use efficiency, let's say this room is our plot that we are cultivating. So every year, we apply 1 4 tank to this room. But maybe due to climate change or unavailability of water resources, water was not available. So this time we have half of the tank available. Now with the application of OFA, you can still go ahead and cultivate with a reduced amount of water, because once you apply OFA, this hormone will be produced in the plant that will help the plant to adjust to water stress. Now, one key important thing watering farmers is nitrogen. Nitrogen is the single most important element required for any plant to grow, because nitrogen cannot, in the absence of nitrogen, no plant can complete its full life cycle, which makes nitrogen the most important aspect of crop nutrition. It also plays a lot of role in the various biochemical activities in the plant. Now, the challenge is that with production of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, you require high energy required for production. Risks associated with the cost of unavailability, as we are currently facing the country now. The cost of nitrogen is high for the synthetic ones. Additionally, the unavailability cannot ensure. Also, application of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer is also a risk to farmers and the environment in general, because once you apply nitrogen, it stays in the soil in the form of nitrates. Once you are applying a lot of water, and if you are being truthful to yourself, sometimes our farmers, they apply water in excess. So the more you apply the water, the more it's leaching. And with leaching of this nitrate into the soil, that affects the groundwater resources. We've realized that with the availability of OFA, applying OFA singularly or individually, or combining it with this synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, realize that you can reduce drastically the amount of nitrogen you apply to your farm. Let's say currently the application rate of nitrogen is 90 kg per hectare, which means that with the availability of OFA, you can reduce that rate from 0 to 50%, with emphasis being on the soil fertility status. Realize that in Ghana we have 6 agroecological zones. Each zone is characterized by different level of soil fertility. Now the most important thing is that OFA also serves as an activator that helps to accelerate the conversion of organic materials into available nutrients. Basically, what it's telling us is that there's maybe nitrogen in the soil, but it is not available in the form that the plants can contain. So the application of OFA helps in the conversion of nitrogen into nitrates that can be uptaken by the plant for growth. We did a research on our phone basically to compare the nitrogen uptake in soils, where we have the control and the OFA. Now this is the measurement of chlorophyll content in the leaves. So chlorophyll content in the apical leaves of OFA amended trial than in control trial by week 10. So this experiment, we are the 10th week. We realize that this is the control. There is no OFA. This is the tomato plant here we planted with an applied OFA. We realized that at all the data collection periods, there were high level of chlorophyll as compared to the control, which means this was OFA that was applied only without any synthetic artificial nitrogen fertilizer. So this indicates that with the single application of OFA alone, the plant will be able to uptake a lot of nitrogen. As the results over here says as a testimony, whereby the chlorophyll content of tomato plants subjected to OFA are high as compared to that of the control where no OFA was applied.
I'm going to present the effect of organic acid on rubber seedlings. My presentation is going to follow this up, the introduction and rationales for the studies, the aim and objectives, materials and methods, the results, conclusions, and some recommendations. So, natural rubber was first introduced to Ghana in the 1930s. By it was of 1957 that the plant was established as a plantation at Iko, in the western region of Ghana. So areas suitable for rubber production in Ghana include the forest zones of western, central, eastern, and then Ashanti regions. The tree requires minimum rainfall of about 1,200 millimeters per annum, relatively evenly distributed on lower slopes, uplands, and flatlands. The rubber plantation development is one of the lucrative farming ventures in the western and parts of the central and eastern regions of Ghana. And it stands out as one of the most profitable farming ventures. Smallholder farmers play a very significant role in the total rubber production in most of the rubber growing countries of the world. And this is accounting for up to about 70% of the total rubber production in Ghana. In Ghana, the major problem faced by this farmer is the supply and availability of quality rubber planting materials or seedlings for the establishment of their rubber farms. And the rubber seedling production takes a minimum of 9 months and a maximum of 18 months before they are transplanted for the field establishment. In the course of that, fungal diseases and insect pests infestation, particularly aphid, as well as nutrient deficiency, greatly affect the growth and quality of the rubber seedlings. A significant amount of resources are spent on fungicide and insecticide in the establishment of quality rubber nurseries with their attendant effects. So we were introduced to this product, organic farming aids, which is claimed to function as an insecticide, fungicide, and then also soil amendment. And therefore, as researchers, we need an empirical evidence before we can come out to say that something is truly good or not. So the introduction of this, if it happens that it will be okay, then it means that it will be a game changer for most of the nursery operators in the rubber industry. And because there hasn't been any scientific assessment carried out, we need to do that. And empirical evidence is therefore needed to ascertain the efficacy of the product in managing fungi, insects, and also acting as a soil amendment at the same time. So it is expected that farmers and nursery operators will have a sigh of relief if this multi-purpose product achieves the role as a fungicide, insect pest repellent, and also as a soil amendment. So the objectives, as stated here, one is to assess the efficacy of the organic farming aid product in managing fungal diseases and insect pest infestation for healthy growth of rubber seeds. Then to investigate the effect of the organic farming aid on the growth and value sources of rubber seeds. And then to also assess the effect of the organic farming aid on soil and physical properties. And then to assess the effect of managing soil fertility for every group of rubber seeds. So the research was carried out in the western region of Ghana. That is where most of the rubber production is. Precisely in the Ellen district of the western region of Ghana, in a station by a CSR professor into a substation. The experiment was laid in a randomized controlled drug design. And then we have the various treatments. So we have the organic farming aid. Then we have a treatment which is a normal practice, what is done normally by the nursery operators. That is the use of fungicide, insecticide, and then inorganic fertilizers at their recommended rate. We have the treatment 3, which is the control, where we don't add anything at all. So the treatments were applied to an already established human rubber nursery. And then these are the rules of the nursery. So this is showing the field layout of the nursery. So we have the NP is the normal practice, and then the CCL is the control where we don't add anything, and then we have the OFA where we apply the OFA. So these are how the plants look like in the field. So data was collected on the disease severity, on the leaves, and then the growth parameters were also assessed, like the height, the number of leaves, the leaf area, depth of seedlings, and then the budding sources. Because at the end of it all, before you transplant the rubber from the nursery to the field, it has to be successfully budded with a proper growth. So if the seedling is not properly budded or it is not successfully budded, then it means that you have not achieved anything. So we look at the effect of the organic farming aid also on the budding sources of the rubber seedlings. And then we also look at infiltration rate, infiltration amount, the bulk density, the moisture content, the saturated hydraulic productivity, how the organic farming aid affected all these parameters. So the data was analyzed using these protocols. And this was what was given to me as the components, some of the major components of the OFA. I didn't do this work myself, but I took this one from the OFA secretariat. So the source of this is NBCEP Research Consult 2019. So with our work, if you look at the disease severity, you look at the OFA treated crops and that of the normal practice. Even though the normal practice is significantly higher than the OFA plot in terms of disease severity, we also recommended that we should do economic analysis. Because if you look at the number of times that the normal practice is applied, the normal practice is normally applied every 4 days. But the OFA product, we applied it on weekly basis. But you can also see that the OFA is also significantly higher than that of the normal practice. So it means that it has an effect. Instead of, if you do it without adding anything, OFA will have a positive effect as compared to not adding anything at all. And in side 2, the same trend was followed. So these are some of the leaves showing the severity of the leaf spot disease. So these ones were when nothing was done to aid. But if you look at some of the leaves from the OFA treated plots, you can see that they look healthier as compared to when you don't have anything added. Then we look at the effect of the treatment on height of the rubber seedlings. The height is one of the group parameters that was measured. So if you look at the OFA, which has 97.2, it was significantly higher than that of even the normal practice. So it means that the OFA had positive effect on the height of the rubber seedlings. Then, if you look at the next one, which is the girth of the rubber seedlings too, the OFA is significantly higher than that of the normal practice, and then the control. So it means that it has a positive effect on the girth of the rubber seedlings. And if you look at the number of leaves, because the number of leaves will correlate into photosynthetic activities. So the OFA treated plot has a significantly higher number of leaves as compared to the control and even the normal practice. And as I said earlier, in transferring the seedlings from the nursery to the field, it depends on the successfully budded ones. So we look at the effect on the success of budding. So if you look at the budding success, the OFA had 88.73 as compared to 84.8 of the normal practice. So if you have, let's say, about in every 100 seedlings, you can get 88 of them being successfully budded, as compared to that of 84 from the normal practice, which means that the organic farming aid has a positive effect on the budding success of the rubber seedling. Then we also look at the effect of it on the pore density and the regulating moisture content of the soil. So looking at the data that we had, the organic farming had significantly lesser pore density. If the pore density of the soil is high, it means that the aeration content of the soil to have aeration, or the soil will suffer from aeration, as the earlier presenter was saying. So it means if the soil has a very low or lower pore density, it means that the soil is a bit porous. So because it's porous, there will be aeration, and then microbial activities can take place, and it can also help in the normal growth of the plants. So you can see that the pore density is significantly lower in the OFA treated crop as compared to that of the normal practice. Then the granular moisture content was higher. The moisture content of the OFA treated crops were higher, significantly higher than that of the normal practice. Then we also look at the infiltration parameters. We're looking at the infiltration amount and then the sortility and all that. And almost all the infiltration parameters favored the organic farming aid. So if you look at the infiltration amount, the rate, and then the sortility, and then the saturated hydraulic conductivity, they were all positively affected by the OFA product. So, for example, if you, let's assume that it rains, or you pour water onto the soil, or it rains, so the OFA treated plots are going to allow the water to enter the soil at a faster rate than the plots that have not been treated or the normal practice crop, meaning that it has some positive effect on the soil hydrophysical properties and even the subtility, the initial rate of infiltration. So the results of the study revealed that organic farming aid recorded the lowest bulk density value of 8 and then the highest graduating moisture content value of 0.105. The highest value for all the infiltration parameters as indicated means that the organic farming aid has a positive effect on infiltration. Then the study concluded that the organic farming aid wood vinegar has soil amendment properties, and that reduce soil bulk density, increase granularity water content, and improve soil infiltration. So in conclusion, we came to a conclusion that the OFA has antifungal effect and will significantly reduce disease severity to a minimum in rubber networks. And then OFA provides optimal conditions needed for the development and growth of the rubber seeds compared to the normal practice. Then also OFA treatment significantly influence the growth and budding sources of the rubber seedlings. Then OFA has soil amendment properties that reduce the soil bulk density, increase granularity water content, and then improve soil infiltration parameters. So the recommendation that has come out is that there should be further studies to look at the cost effectiveness, so that we will look at, okay, if OFA is doing all this, then we will look at the cost when you have used the normal practice, and then the cost when you use the OFA, so that we will look at, for farmers, they are interested in the monetary aspect. But from what I've seen so far, even though that has not been done, I can predict the likely outcome that the OFA will stand a better chance. And then also further studies should be conducted on the application rate of the OFA, because if you look at the rates of application, the 75 mils per 15 liters knapsack every week, and for the normal practice it was done every 4 days. So you will see that maybe the frequency of application might have also helped the normal practice. If you look at the disease severity, the normal practice was significantly higher than that of the OFA, and it will be due to the rate or the frequency of application. Then OFA could be used to increase the development of both of rubber seedlings. So these were the chemicals we have the Benzo, and then we have the Carbendazole, and then this the OFA. These are some of my records working on the rubber seedlings. Thank you.
We have different activities. The first activity was teaching at different rates, organic farming thing, that is the whole of looking at organic fertilizer and the proof activity of this. The second was different rates of organic farming, which is synthetic insecticide of carbon pesticides. That are basically the effect of oil being through causing emission. So as I was saying in my last slide, I was saying the possibility of reducing the application of OFA to the range of 0 to 50%. So the emphasis was on grading soil fertility status. So as one of our colleagues just said in the question and answer session, that we need to come out with different locations as I think allowing for the BPS plan. So generally speaking, shells in southern Ghana is more or less soil that has high level of fertility soils in northern region. So it was imperative for us to combine the different rates of the OFA and the inorganic maize, as well as cowpea, as well as groundnut. Looking at these three cereals, they are also maize is a cereal, the cowpea is a liquid, and that is also in addition to this cross-forming important part of the aerobic activity, it's also introduce a form of natural nitrogen to the soil with respect to cowpea and groundnut. So some of the major factors contributing to the low yield of maize, cowpea, and groundnut are low and declining soil fertility. We have disease and pest infestation. We have lack of inputs and high cost of agricultural inputs. Our efforts aim at obtaining high yield, healthy soils necessitate implementation of the different factors of the soil to meet the crop requirement and the same soil fertility. Now this is very, very important because of this, the new varieties, the high varieties, they demand and do a lot of nutrients from the soil as compared to the local varieties that farmers have been cultivating and creating. Insecticide recipe do not exceed threshold levels in harvested crops. Basically, what I'm talking about is that once you apply the insecticide or the pesticide to the crops, you have a certain threshold that beyond which human consumption will have the detrimental effect of the plants. That one, you have the threshold levels are Ghana here is being connected by FDA. So, for example, if you are applying chemicals onto the plant, and the threshold after harvesting, we do the chemical analysis of the grains, determining the threshold is within a acceptable range of results. And also improve production and pest management and for the have more effective practices. Those of us in the farm realize that the level of infestation of pest attack on the crops tends to affect it as harvest. Those who talk about organic exploration. We have an insect called the stem borers. They punch small minute holes in the fruit. When they harvest, they take everything so we leave it in the storage room or in a cooking space just for a day. So when we come back, you see some brownish, they've been oozing out of these spots. Within 2 or 3 days, the entire fruit gets rotted. I don't know if some of you have had experience. These are the lots of the insects that attack the plant in the fall before it was harvested. Also, those who have experience with maize production realize that if you let the maize overdry on the fruit and pest attack it, normally after the husking and removing all the maize, normally it has a short life compared to plants or maize crops that have moving just in vegetation. So the way forward, we need to reduce the risk of synthetic chemicals and introducing organic based insecticide. As you know, the limited effects of synthetic chemicals to the farmer, to the environment. Aside this negative effect, the risk of still in the unavailability or the high cost of these things. HD Africa has recognized that one of the ways to increase the activity of these crops is by developing a product known as organic farming. So, this one, my introduction, I already give you a brief overview of what the OFA is, so we don't need to cover this one. It's one, that is the effect of the different rates of organic farming being organic fertilizer and growth activity of maize. So the objective was that to assess the effect of different rates of OFA in organic fertilizer and growth and yield of maize. So this was the variety of maize we used the one out of the variety of maize that we use. That is what is locally produced. That's the dominant variety that is produced in nothing. How further we do the scientific rotation of the mental disease. But what I tell you that OFA works, how we got here is so the treatment, these are the treatment, that is the various medication that occur. The first one was control. We didn't apply any form of fertilizer, NPK or inorganic nitrogen or Next one was 100% population dose of OFA. That is 30 dose of OFA as against 50 liters of water. So this treatment, that one here had only OFA, even compared to the inorganic fertilizer. And we had a condition of 30 dose per 50 liters of water. And the third treatment was that we had a 100% dose of MPP, that's the 90 kg. So 90 kg with OFA. That's what that was. So only MPP. So treatment 1, no application. So it's only OFA. And there is only MPP. And treatment 4 is about 50% population dose of OFA and 50% population dose of MPP. So we used both these units by half to see how these 4 different treatments will impact on the growth and yield of these plants. So these are the data I report. Normally, we look at the plant height, it goes to 50% starting, it goes to 50% silking, very low, we have the strong yield, the harvest speed, the harvest speed. Particularly, some of our square are really and salting because we are really interested in the maize. We know that the strong yield of maize is being an alternative source of poultry. That's why strong yield is also important. So this one, our data analysis that was structured. So we can see those together. Relying on the plant height, that is the highest plant height was recorded in land that had 100% MPP, 170 to 160, followed by the 50% OFA and the 50% MPP. Then the least performing one was that of the control, the one that didn't have any form of issue. So basically, this baby is telling us that in order to have improved yields, there must be some form of fertilizer application or soil amendment, regardless of being it organic or inorganic. You must add something to your soil before you increase the yield. The question boils down to this: the two money. NPK load is too low as a level of plant yield, plant height, as compared to 50% growth and 50%. Now, some of us, like earlier, I was making a statement that the application of OFA can reduce the percentage of TBK. Now, that is part of the technology. What does it look at? If you use the NPK and also reduce that of OFA, you're going to have the same trend or you're going to have a lesser trend. And for others, it shows that reducing the basic rates of OFA, in addition to reducing the NPK, you have positive consequences on the plant height, as you can see over here. This is about between 50 to 20% reduction in plant height. Because you have used the normal dosage of OFA for base. So the dosage of for base is 30 mils to what? 15 liters. And you use it for 15 mils to what? 15 liters. That is because of that why I have this trend. Over here, in terms of the grade, that's the most important aspect. We also have a similar issue over here, whereby I realize that any form of application of soil amendment to the soil of the plant, we are going to have increase in yield. This is addressing the earlier point we had that we need to have increase in yield is the least form of what? Application of fertilizer, maybe organic or inorganic. So you have after a similar thing over here, whereby MPK is performing better than the reduced rates of OFA and what? The reduced rates of MPK. You can see there's a reduction in the yield of plant. Now, ranking the different performance. One thing that affects research is that normally, after research, one of the key stakeholders are the farmers. How do they get access to our results? Just to get So, what we did was that we had a group of farmers and we introduced them to the various treatment that we have. That is the no application, only MPK, only the whole field intervention. And we asked them choose based on the result they see in the food. We realized that 22 right here preferred 100% and 90% of them preferred OFA 50%. And this follows the normal trend because as farmers, what we are interested in was what? The yield. So if NPK will be as high, why don't I go for it? Because when we reduce the OFA application and combine it with NPK, we reduce the yield. So that is why you can see everybody, the farmers are pulling for 100% NPK, 50% OFA. Now, this was the first question of the course. Currently, as we talk now, this same result is being experienced by the two. What I mean is that you are going back to the 100% growth field, the 50% field, as well as you are looking at the effect on the soil as well. That you have a comprehensive set of data. And what I tell you is that, okay, using growth field to reduce the yield, as you can see right here. So increasing the growth field to 100% will also increase the yield. That is what we are trying to do here. So we have participating farmer evaluation, as we were saying, sometimes we do research in isolation from the farmers. Farmers who are also going to implement it together with the first agent to also approach to start at 1.2, there is more or less a bridge or a gap between us. So we did participating farming evaluation, that is the research output of the research station in Sari. We invited farmers there to come and see the effect of the growth of the digital today. I think now I'm using about 49 farmers. We have 30 minutes there. 19 minutes. As you can see, this is a picture of farmers who could visually see what we are doing back here. And that's some of the farming communities. And then also some we have demonstration plots whereby you try different techniques that invite farmers to come and see. This is what similar to that we did in Puerto Rico. That's more pictures. Now, so this is basically the conclusion to the research. The differences observed in this yield as a result of organic farming aid and renewable method application, the East Savannah zone, the indication of the importance of what nutrient applications in this production. As I was saying earlier, from the results, it's clear that if you want to have good yield, you must what? Apply some form of what? Chemical, some form of fertilizer, even synthetic or organic. So we go to although soils in the Guinea Savannah and Borderline zone are most generally poor in nutrients, the job of this thing show that combination of OFA plus NPK resulted in synergy. Synergy means when you combine them, they work together. So we have once you combine them, you can see a resulting increase in your place. Now, combined application of OFA and inorganic fertilizer can reduce the use of what? Inorganic fertilizers, where the NPK by up to 50%, thereby reducing the excessive use of inorganic fertilizer in process of environmental energy. So, as a farmer, the key decision is that every decision that you are going to take, you are going to have some form of effect on that period. We are going for only NPK. That will give me this X quantity in yield. When the NPK has concentrated what is as well as high cost, or you want to reduce the NPK and apply OFA and reduce it. Maybe I'm going to get a reduced yield, and it will be better for me as compared to me not applying anything at all, or comparing it to only the NPK. I'm going to save some amount of money as well as to increase the mental condition. So basically, this is what we did for the research side. So I think this was a combination of CSIR and growth as a learning foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm Nana Anof, but artistically I signed Nanof. I paint and then I sculpt with collected materials, which means items that people have used and I've discarded, I collect and then give them a second lease of life. Sometimes to tell my story, and sometimes they come with their own story. And so I just want to thank you all for the good work you're doing for Mother Ghana farming. That is the backbone. And so this is my little piece which I want to share with you. And I use a fan, part of a car, part of a circuitous, and then a doorknob for the water bottle, and some spark plugs for the fruits of the hard labor. So these are some of the, and an old piece of wood from a window, I'm sure has a lot of tales to tell of whatever happened in the room. So these are some of the materials used in telling my story about this.